Part 1. Far beyond the last marked star on any galactic map, where even the bravest Concord scouts turned back, space stretched empty and cold. Out here, silence wasn't just the absence of sound. It was a wall, thick and heavy, pressing against the hulls of ships that dared to drift too close. Most species believed nothing lived out here. They were wrong. Jake Morrison leaned forward in the pilot's seat of the Aurora's Reach, his eyes fixed on the flickering screen before him. The ship was small, built for long-range scouting, not combat. Its gray hull was patched in places, and the hum of its engine was more groan than song. But it was home. Outside the viewport, the Veil Nebula swirled like ink dropped in water, purple, black, and streaked with faint silver light. Beautiful, deadly. He tapped his comm.
Theta 9, this is Jake. I'm picking up strange energy spikes again.
Not natural, feels structured. A calm voice answered almost instantly. Copy that, Jake. Send the data stream. Lena out. Commander Lena Hayes ran Outpost Theta 9, a hidden human station buried inside a cluster of hollowed-out asteroids. To the rest of the galaxy, it didn't exist. To the Galactic Concord, a massive alliance of over 200 alien civilizations, humanity was just another young species, barely out of its solar cradle, still learning how to fold space and speak politely at diplomatic meetings. They had no idea that humans had been traveling the stars long before the Concord even formed. No idea that Earth's colonies stretched deep into the uncharted dark. And absolutely no clue about the weapons, the shields, or the silent warships sleeping in the void. Jake watched as the energy reading spiked again. A pattern emerged, rhythmic, precise. Not cosmic radiation. Not a dying star. Something watching. Something waiting. Then a blip appeared on his long-range scanner. A Concord patrol vessel, sleek, silver, marked with the triple helix emblem of the Alliance. It shouldn't be here. This zone was marked unstable. Do not enter. But the ship drifted closer, slow and curious like a child poking a sleeping beast. Theta 9, Jake said, voice tight. We've got company. Concord cruiser, designation unknown, heading straight for the nebula's edge. Lena's voice came back sharp. Pull back, Jake. Now do not engage. Do not be seen. He eased the throttle, guiding the Aurora's Reach behind a drifting ice rock. His heart pounded. He knew the rules. Humans stayed hidden, always. Ever since the First War, though no one talked about that anymore. The past was buried under layers of silence and steel. On his screen, the Concord ship slowed as it neared the nebula's outer rim. Its engines pulsed gently. Then, without warning, the ship vanished. One moment it was there, a bright dot against the stars. The next gone. No explosion. No distress call. Just empty space. Jake held his breath. Lena, it's gone. A long pause. Then, did you see anything? Any weapon fire? Any distortion? Nothing. Like it just switched off. Another silence. He could almost hear her thinking. Then she said, return to Theta 9, full stealth protocol. And Jake, don't talk to anyone about this. Not even Nora. Nora Briggs was the outpost's lead engineer, brilliant and blunt, with grease-stained hands and a laugh that could shake the walls. She'd been fixing the quantum comms array all morning and hadn't noticed the alert. But she would. She always did. Jake turned the ship around, his mind racing. The Concord would notice their missing patrol. They'd send more ships, ask questions. And if they found Theta 9, everything would change. Back at the outpost, the docking bay hissed as the airlock sealed behind him. The station was dimly lit, warm from recycled air and humming machinery. Lena met him at the entrance, arms crossed, face unreadable. She was tall, with sharp eyes and a voice that never rose but always cut deep. They'll come looking, she said quietly. Yeah, Jake replied, and when they do, they'll find nothing. Just rocks and silence. Lena didn't smile. Unless they find us, they won't. They almost did today. Jake looked away. He knew she was right. The galaxy was getting bolder. The Concord was expanding, mapping every corner, demanding answers from every species they met. Humanity couldn't hide forever. Later that night, alone in his quarters, Jake replayed the sensor logs. The energy spikes hadn't stopped after the Concord ship disappeared. They'd grown stronger, and beneath the static he thought he heard something. A low, rhythmic pulse like a heartbeat from the nebula itself. He didn't tell anyone. Not yet. The next morning, Nora cornered him near the mess hall. You look like you saw a ghost, she said, sipping black coffee from a chipped mug. Just tired, Jake mumbled. She narrowed her eyes. Lena's been locked in the command center since dawn, and the defense grid just pinged twice in 10 minutes. That thing hasn't blinked in 50 years. Jake stayed quiet. Nora leaned closer. Something happened out there, didn't it? He sighed. A conquered ship vanished. Right at the edge. Her mug froze halfway to her lips. Vanished how? No debris. No signal gone. Nora's face went pale. That's not possible unless... Unless what? She glanced around, lowered her voice. Unless the old grid woke up. The defense grid. A network of ancient satellites and hidden stations built after the First War, programmed to protect humanity's hiding place at all costs. Rumor said it could erase a fleet without firing a single shot, but it hadn't been active since the war ended, over 300 years ago. Jake felt a chill. You think it's still working? I think, Nora said slowly, that if it is, we're in trouble. Because if it's awake, something must have triggered it. And that means we're not alone out here anymore. Outside the station, the stars burned cold and distant. The Veil Nebula pulsed softly like it was breathing, and deep within its swirling darkness, something waited, something old, something hungry, and something that remembered humanity very well. Part 2. Lena Hayes stood alone in the command center, staring at the star map on the main screen. Red markers blinked near the Veil Nebula, Concord activity. More ships were coming. She rubbed her temples, tired but not surprised. Secrets never stayed buried forever. Not out here. Memories flickered in her mind, uninvited. She was a girl again, sitting on her grandfather's knee in a bunker deep beneath Mars. He spoke in whispers, his voice rough with age and grief. We used to be proud, he'd said. We built cities among the stars. Then came the reckoning. He never said what the reckoning was, only that it burned whole worlds and left silence in its wake. Humanity barely survived. They fled, hid, and swore never to draw attention again. Now, centuries later, that oath was cracking. Down in the maintenance bay, Jake and Nora worked side by side, checking the outpost's shield emitters. The air smelled of ozone and hot metal. Nora wiped sweat from her brow and glanced at Jake. You told her, didn't you? About the pulse. I had to, he said. If the grid's active, we need to know why. Nora nodded. I pulled old logs last night, buried deep, encrypted under 7 layers. Found something. A ship, not conquered, not human, older, way older. Jake stopped working. What kind of ship? Biomechanical. Like metal grown from bone. Records say it appeared near Earth 300 years ago. One ship, it didn't attack. It just watched. Then our ancestors fired everything we had. Nothing worked. So they did the only thing left. They lured it into a gravity well and collapsed the space around it. Took half our fleet with it. Jake swallowed. And that was the First War. That was the beginning of it, Nora said. After that, more came. We lost colonies. Billions died. In the end, we didn't win. We just disappeared. A loud chime echoed through the bay. Both looked up. An alert. Unauthorized approach. Lena's voice crackled over the comm. Jake, Nora, report to Observation Deck B, now. They ran. On the observation deck, Lena stood with her arms behind her back, watching the viewport. Outside, a small Concord shuttle drifted slowly toward Theta 9. No weapons. No aggressive moves, just watching. That's Cale Vor, Lena said. Concord's top diplomat for frontier species. He's supposed to be negotiating trade routes with the Zenthari, not lurking near forbidden zones. Maybe he's lost, Jake offered. No, Lena said. He's hunting. Cale's shuttle sent a standard. Hail. Friendly. Curious. Asked. If Theta 9 needed assistance, claimed. Their patrol ship had gone silent nearby and they were checking for survivors, Lena replied with a calm lie. This is Mining Station Gamma 12. We're automated. No crew. No contact with missing vessel. She used an old cover identity, one buried in Concord databases as inactive. Cale thanked her politely, but his shuttle didn't leave. It circled, scanning. He knows, Nora whispered. Maybe, Lena said. But knowing isn't proof. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He went to the archive room, a small cold chamber filled with backup drives and paper logs, some things humans still kept offline. He searched for The Last Stand. The name had come to him in a dream. Clear and sharp, the system found one match, classified, level Omega. He hesitated, then entered his override code, granted only to deep-range scouts in emergencies. The file opened, images filled the screen. A massive human warship, black as space, shaped like a spear, built not to fight but to end wars. Its core housed an AI named Warden, designed to make impossible choices. The ship vanished during the final days of the First War. Presumed destroyed, but the last log entry was different. Coordinates. Right inside the Veil Nebula. Jake's hand shook.
He see.
Opied the data to a secure chip and slipped it into his pocket. The next morning, alarms blared. Intrusion detected in Sector 4, outer hull. Lena and her security team rushed to respond. They found nothing but a tiny drone, fried by the station's auto defenses. But it had already done its job. It had scanned Theta 9's energy signature, its hull composition, its comms frequency. Kale had proof, not of weapons or warships, but enough to know this wasn't a mining station. Lena called an emergency council. Only 3 people, herself, Jake, and Nora. They met in a soundproof room deep in the station's core. He'll report back, Lena said. The Conquered will send investigators, scientists, maybe a fleet. Once they realize what we are, they'll either try to control us or destroy us. What do we do? Jake asked. Nora leaned forward. We find the last stand. If it's still out there, it might have answers. Or weapons, or both. Lena looked at them both. That ship is a ghost, and ghosts don't save anyone. But what if it's not a ghost, Jake said. What if it's waiting? Silence filled the room. Outside, the Conquered shuttle finally turned and flew away, heading back toward known space. But everyone knew it would return, with more. Lena made her decision. Jake, you'll take the Aurora's reach. Nora, you go with him. Find that ship, fast and quiet. If it's there, wake it up. If it's not, come back before the Conquered does. 2 hours later, the scout ship launched, vanishing into the nebula's mist. Inside, Jake piloted while Nora monitored the strange signal growing stronger with every kilometer. The Veil Nebula wasn't just gas and dust, it was laced with ancient human tech hidden long ago. Beacons, traps, tombs. Then, without warning, the ship's systems flickered. Lights dimmed. Engines stuttered. What's happening? Jake said. Nora checked the readings. Something's pulling us. Not gravity, something else. Ahead, the nebula parted like a curtain, and there it was. The last stand. It hung in the void, untouched by time, its hull scarred but whole. No lights, no movement. But as the Aurora's reach drew closer, a single beam of blue light shot out from its bow, scanning them. A voice, calm, ancient, and weary, filled their comms. Identify lineage. Jake swallowed. Human. Earthborn. Descendant of the 7th Fleet. A pause. Then voice print confirmed. Welcome home, children. The warship's bay doors opened slowly, like a mouth waking from sleep. Inside, the corridors were dark, cold, and lined with dormant drones. Nora ran a hand along the wall. This place is alive. At the heart of the ship, they found the core chamber. Floating in the center was a sphere of light, the Warden AI. You should not be here, it said. The Reckoning sleeps, but it dreams, and your presence has stirred it. What is the Reckoning? Jake asked. A force that consumes civilizations, the AI replied. It does not kill. It rewrites, turns minds into machines, worlds into engines. We fought it once. We barely delayed it. Now your kind has awakened the old defenses, and the Reckoning will come again. Nora's face went pale. The Conquered stole our tech. They're trying to copy it. The AI pulsed brighter. Foolish. Our weapons are not tools. They are keys, and the wrong hand turns them into doors. Back at Theta 9, Lena watched the stars. She felt it, the shift in the void. Something old was moving, and humanity hiding at the edge of the map was no longer hidden. She whispered to the empty room, "Forgive us, ancestors. We tried to stay quiet, but silence was over. The galaxy would learn the truth soon enough, and when it did, ruins would follow." Part 3. The Conquered moved fast. Within days of Kael'vor's return, a fleet of research vessels and armored cruisers gathered near the edge of the Veil Nebula. They called it a scientific survey, but their scanners probed deep, their drones mapped every rock, and their encrypted signals buzzed with urgency. They had fragments of human tech now, stolen from Theta 9, and they believed they held the key to ultimate power. On Earth, the High Council met in a chamber buried beneath the Pacific Ocean. Holograms of leaders from every human colony flickered around a round table. Their faces were grim. Reports from Theta 9 confirmed the worst. The Concord had reverse-engineered parts of humanity's quantum dampening field and neural encryption. They didn't understand the safeguards. They didn't know the systems were designed to self-destruct if used with hostile intent. "They think they've found a weapon," said Counselor Diaz, her voice low. "But they've found a trap," another voice cut in. "We must warn them." "And say what?" replied Admiral Cole. "That we've been lying for 300 years. That we're not the harmless newcomers they think we are. They'll see it as a threat. They'll attack first." Silence fell. The truth was too dangerous to share, and silence was no longer safe. Back at Theta 9, Lena watched the Concord fleet grow on her screen. She hadn't heard from Jake or Nora since they entered the nebula. She hoped they were still alive. She hoped the last stand would give them answers. But hope wouldn't stop what was coming. Then it happened. A massive energy surge lit up the sector. One of the Concord's test ships, modified with stolen human tech, flared bright white on all sensors. For 3 seconds it shone like a newborn star. Then it collapsed inward, vanishing into a point of darkness. The shockwave rippled outward, distorting space itself. Stars flickered. Nearby asteroids cracked apart without sound. Lena's console screamed with warnings. Gravity anomalies. Temporal distortions. Radiation spikes. The Concord fleet scrambled, ships colliding in panic. 2 more vessels were caught in the ripple. They didn't explode. They unraveled, their hulls twisting into strange shapes before dissolving into static. The stolen tech had failed. Not just failed, backfired. But worse was coming. Deep in the void beyond the nebula, something stirred. The reckoning, awakened by the energy surge, began to move. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a fleet. It was a wave, a slow, spreading tide of corrupted space where matter and mind bent to a single will. The Warden AI had warned of this, and now it was real. On the last stand, Jake and Nora felt the disturbance through the hull. The ship groaned like an old beast sensing danger. The Concord broke the seal, the Warden said, its voice calm but urgent. "The reckoning knows we are here. It remembers us." Nora pulled up a star map on the warship's console. "It's coming from the dark rift near Cygnus X1, moving faster than light." Jake stared at the screen. "How do we stop it?" "We don't stop it," the AI replied. "We delay it again, but this time we are not alone. The Concord has drawn its attention. Their worlds are now in its path." Nora turned to Jake. "We have to get back to Theta 9. Warn Lena." The last stand powered up its engines, ancient systems humming to life after centuries of sleep. As it turned toward the nebula's edge, Jake looked out the viewport. Space itself seemed to warp in the distance like heat rising off desert sand. Something was coming. Something that didn't belong in this universe. At the same time, Cale Vore stood on the bridge of the Concord flagship, Harmony's Will. His hands trembled as he reviewed the sensor logs. Entire sections of space were going dark. Not empty, wrong. His science officer reported strange signals, thoughts that weren't theirs, voices in the static, machines acting on their own. Cale finally understood. The humans hadn't been hiding out of fear. They'd been hiding to protect everyone else. He opened a private channel to Lena Hayes, bypassing Concord protocols. "Commander," he said, voice strained. "I need to speak with you now," Lena answered, surprised but cautious. "What do you want, Vore?" "I know you're not what you pretend to be," he said. "And I think I know why." "Tell me the truth, please," she hesitated. Then softly, "You've already seen it, haven't you?" "The unraveling." "Yes," he whispered. "What is it?" "A mistake," she said. "One we made long ago, and now it's coming back." Before she could say more, alarms blared across Theta 9. A new alert. Concord forces were launching a second wave of drones, this time aimed directly at the outpost. They thought Theta 9 was the source of the disaster. They wanted answers, or revenge. Lena cut the call. "Seal all hatches. Activate defense grid level 2. The station shuddered as hidden panels slid open along its outer shell. Tiny satellites detached and formed a shield around the asteroid cluster. The Concord drones hit the barrier and shattered like glass. But Lena knew this was only the beginning. The real enemy wasn't the conquered. It was the thing moving through the dark, drawn by the chaos. Hours later, the last stand emerged from the nebula. Jake hailed Theta 9 immediately. "Lena, we're back, and we've got a plan." "Talk fast," she said. "The warden says the reckoning feeds on advanced tech. The more civilization builds, the hungrier it gets. The Concord's fleet is like a dinner bell. We need to shut it down gently, disable their ships without destroying them, then lure the reckoning away." "How?" Lena asked. "The last stand can broadcast a false signal, a ghost echo of human tech from the First War. Strong enough to draw the reckoning off course, but we'll need to get close." "Very close," Nora added. "And we'll need the Concorde to stand down, or they'll shoot us before we even try." Lena looked at the growing fleet on her screen. Then she made a choice. She opened a wideband channel, uncoded, unencrypted, so every ship in the sector could hear. "This is Commander Lena Hayes of Earth," she said, her voice steady. "We are not your enemy. What's coming is older than your alliance, older than your stars. If you fire on us, you die. If you listen, you might live. Stand down, now." Silence followed. Then, one by one, the conquered ships powered down their weapons. Kyle Vor gave the order himself. In that moment, humanity stepped out of the shadows, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as the only ones who knew how to face the dark, and the dark was already on its way. Part 4. The silence after Lena's broadcast was heavy. No weapons charged, no engines roared, just the slow drift of ships in the void waiting. Kyle Vor stood on his bridge, heart pounding, unsure if he'd just saved his people or doomed them. He watched the human warship, the last stand, as it moved slowly toward the center of the conquered fleet. It looked ancient, scarred, and utterly alone. Inside the warship, Jake gripped the controls. Nora sat beside him, fingers flying over the console, syncing the false signal with the Warden AI. The plan was simple but dangerous. They would mimic the energy signature of humanity's old war tech, the kind that had drawn the reckoning centuries ago. Strong enough to lure it away from the conquered worlds. But if they got too close, the reckoning might see through the trick. And if it did, nothing would stop it. "Signal ready," Nora said. "Warden says it'll hold for 20 minutes. After that, the distortion field collapses." 20 minutes is all we need," Jake replied. He activated the broadcast. A pulse of energy shot out from the last stand, not violent, but deep like a drumbeat echoing through space. It carried the ghost of old human weapons, the hum of forgotten battles, the scent of a civilization that once stood tall and fell hard. Far beyond the fleet, in the twisted dark near Cygnus X1, the reckoning paused. Then it turned. Toward the signal. Lena watched from Theta 9 as the anomaly shifted course. "It's working," she whispered. But the Conquered wasn't safe yet. One of their damaged research vessels, still unstable from the earlier surge, began to overload. Its core flickered red on every screen. If it exploded, the blast could trigger another cascade, another door for the reckoning to walk through. "We have to stop it," Jake said. "The Conquered won't let us near it," Nora warned. "They will if we ask nicely," Lena cut in over the comm. "Kel, your ship at Grid 7 is about to blow. Let us help." Kel didn't hesitate. "Permission granted." "But hurry." The last stand turned sharply, engines flaring as it raced toward the dying vessel. Inside, Jake and Nora suited up. They would have to board it manually, shut down the core before it tore itself apart. The Warden would keep broadcasting the lure, but without them, the signal might falter. They launched in a small pod, docking with the Conquered ship just as its hull began to crack. Inside, the corridors were dark, filled with smoke and flickering lights. Strange whispers echoed through the walls, not voices but thoughts that didn't belong to anyone alive. The reckoning's influence was already seeping in. "Stay focused," Jake said, leading the way. They reached the core chamber. The energy reactor pulsed like a sick heart, veins of black static spreading across its surface. Nora worked fast, rerouting power, bypassing fried circuits. Sweat dripped down her face. "It's fighting me," she said, "like it doesn't want to shut down." "It's not the machine," Jake said. "It's the thing behind it." He placed his hand on the emergency override. "On 3. 1, 2. Nora hit the final command. Jake slammed the switch. The core dimmed. The whispers stopped. The ship went quiet. They barely made it back to their pod before the Conquered vessel drifted lifeless into the void. Harmless now, Back aboard the last stand, the warden spoke. The reckoning is closing in. 18 minutes remain. Jake looked at the main screen. A ripple in space grew larger, darker. Stars behind it vanished, not blocked but erased. The reckoning wasn't a ship. It was a wound in reality, and it was hungry. Time to run, Nora said. The warship turned and fled deeper into empty space, dragging the false signal behind it like bait on a line. The conquered fleet held position, watching in stunned silence. Kale ordered all ships to full retreat. There was nothing more they could do. At Theta 9, Lena prepared for the worst. If Jake and Nora failed, the reckoning would follow the trail back to human space. Earth, Mars, the colonies. All of it gone, not in fire, but in silence, rewritten into something unrecognizable. She activated the Veil Protocol. Not to use it yet, but to be ready. If the reckoning crossed a certain line, she would trigger a chain reaction in the hidden defense grid. It would collapse local space, swallowing entire star systems, including Theta 9, to create a barrier nothing could cross. It was a last resort, a suicide switch, but better than letting the reckoning spread. Hours passed. The last stand flew farther than any human ship had gone in centuries. The false signal weakened. The reckoning gained speed. We're running out of time, Nora said. Jake checked the nav map. Ahead lay the graveyard belt, a field of dead stars and shattered planets left over from the First War. There, he said. We lead it into the belt. The old wreckage might confuse its sensors. The warden agreed. The chaos of that zone may buy us seconds, not minutes. They entered the graveyard belt. Twisted metal floated like bones. Ruined cities hung in orbit around blackened worlds. This was where humanity had made its stand, and where it had nearly ended. The reckoning followed undeterred. Then deep in the belt, something unexpected happened. A signal, real this time, pinged from a buried structure. Human, ancient, still active. What is that? Jake asked. The warden's voice changed. The forge, our last weapon. Buried here after the war. We were never meant to return. Nora's eyes widened. Can we use it? It was designed to seal the reckoning away, the AI said. But it requires a living mind to activate. A sacrifice. Silence filled the cockpit. Jake looked at Nora. She looked back. No words were needed. We don't have a choice, he said. The last stand changed course, heading for the signal. Behind them, the reckoning closed the gap. Space itself began to warp. Time slowed. Lights flickered and died. They reached the forge, a massive ring buried in the crust of a dead moon. Its surface was covered in human symbols glowing faintly. The entrance opened as they approached, as if it had been waiting. Jake turned to Nora. You should stay on the ship. No, she said. We do this together. They stepped inside. The chamber was vast, filled with humming crystals and floating consoles. At the center stood a chair, wired to the core of the forge. Whoever sat there would channel their mind into the machine, becoming the lock that held the reckoning shut. The warden appeared as a soft light beside them. Only one is needed. Jake walked forward. Then it's me. Nora grabbed his arm. Why you? Because I found this place, he said. Because I brought us here. And because someone has to go home and tell them we didn't run. She didn't argue. She just hugged him tight and quick. He sat in the chair. The moment he did, the forge came alive. Light filled the chamber. Outside, the reckoning screamed. A sound that wasn't sound, but pain made real. The last stand lifted off, carrying Nora away. She watched through tears as the moon below began to glow brighter and brighter, until it became a star of pure white light. Then, silence. The reckoning was gone. But so was Jake. Far away, Lena saw the light fade on her screen. She knew what it meant. She closed her eyes and whispered, Rest now, soldier. The galaxy was safe, for now. But at the edge of the map, humanity had paid the price. Again. Part 5. The silence after the light faded was deeper than any before. Not empty, just still. Like the universe had taken a breath and held it. On the bridge of the last stand, Nora sat alone, hands resting on the controls, eyes fixed on the dead moon where Jake had stayed behind. The ship hummed softly around her, as if mourning too. She didn't cry, not yet. There would be time for that later. Right now she had to get home. Back at Theta 9, Lena watched the sensor logs go quiet. No more ripples. No more whispers. The reckoning was sealed, trapped once more inside the forge, locked away by a human mind that chose to stay. She felt the weight of it in her chest, heavy and sharp. Another name to add to the long list of those who gave everything, so the rest could live in the light. The conquered fleet remained at the edge of the graveyard belt, unmoving. HFY War had seen everything. The false signal, the sacrifice, the white light that swallowed the dark. He knew now that humanity wasn't hiding because they were weak. They were hiding because they carried a burden no one else could bear. He opened a channel not to his superiors but directly to Lena. "Commander," he said, voice rough. "What do we tell them?" Lena didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Tell them the truth. But not all of it. Tell them a human ship stopped the anomaly. Tell them we lost good people. Tell them to leave this place alone." Kale nodded slowly. "And if they ask why you were out here, tell them we were watching the edge," she said. "Because someone has to." He closed the channel. Minutes later, the conquered fleet turned and began its slow retreat toward known space. They left behind drones to mark the zone as forbidden, sealed by mutual agreement, not by force. No one would come here again, not for a long time. Nora guided the last stand back to Theta 9. The warship moved like a ghost, its black hull reflecting the faint starlight. When she docked, Lena was waiting on the bay floor. No words passed between them at first. Just a look, a nod. A shared grief too big for speech. Inside the station, they met with the Warden AI, now fully integrated into Theta 9's systems. Its voice was quieter now, almost gentle. "The forge holds, but it will not hold forever. The reckoning sleeps, not dies. One day it will dream again." Lena asked the question they all feared. "How long do we have?" "Centuries," the AI replied. "Maybe more. But only if the galaxy stays quiet. Only if no one wakes it." Nora looked at Lena. "Then we go back to hiding." "No," Lena said. "Not hiding, guarding. The difference mattered. Hiding meant fear. Guarding meant duty." Over the next few weeks, changes began. Theta 9 powered down its most visible systems. The defense grid went dormant again, but not off, just waiting. The last stand was hidden deep in the asteroid cluster, its engines cold, its weapons silent. Nora stayed aboard, not as a pilot, but as its keeper. Someone had to be ready if the light ever faded again. On Earth, the High Council made a decision. Humanity would remain on the galactic map, but only as a minor voice. They would trade, talk, and join meetings, but never reveal their true strength. Their role was no longer to conquer or explore. It was to watch, to warn, to stand at the edge so no one else had to. HFY War returned to conquered space, but he did not report everything. He spoke of a mysterious energy event, a lost human scout, and a natural phenomenon that had stabilized on its own. He buried the truth deep, knowing that if the Concord ever tried to weaponize human tech again, the same nightmare would return. He became an unlikely ally, quietly steering policy away from the Rim, away from the Veil Nebula, away from the secrets that could reduce civilizations to ruins. Months passed. Life on Theta 9 settled into a new rhythm. Nora spent her days maintaining the last stand, talking to the Warden, and sometimes just sitting in the observation deck, staring at the stars. She kept Jake's flight log on a small screen in her quarters. She never deleted it. Lena walked the station's corridors, checking systems, speaking with crew, making sure everyone remembered why they were here. Not for glory, not for power, but because someone had to stand guard while the rest of the galaxy slept. One evening, as the station drifted through its quiet orbit, Lena joined Nora on the observation deck. Outside, the Veil Nebula swirled softly, beautiful and deadly as ever. "He knew what he was doing," Lena said. Nora nodded. "He always did." They stood in silence for a long time. Then Lena said, "We'll tell his story. Not to the conquered, not to the colonies, just to those who come after us, so they know what it costs to keep the dark away." Nora smiled faintly. He'd like that. Far beyond them, the stars burned steady. The galactic map remained unchanged, humans still marked as a young, developing species on the outer rim. But those who looked closely, who listened to the old whispers, knew better. At the edge of everything, humanity watched. Not with weapons raised, but with eyes open and hearts ready. Their secret was no longer just a weapon. It was a promise to stand between the light and the dark no matter the cost, and in the quiet between the stars, that was enough.